On my birthday, Dad called me a burden and kicked me out, so I cut off every bill and left them powerless in the dark. Hey guys, first time posting here. I feel like venting, so here we go. Man, life is so weird when you look back at it. For the longest time, I, a 23-year-old male, was living with my parents and younger sister in our crappy little house. Not because I was some loser who couldn't get his act together, but because my family literally couldn't survive without me. My dad, Phil, hasn't had a job in like 4 years. He got laid off from the factory and just never got another one. He always had excuses, his back hurt, nobody was hiring, the economy sucked, he was exploring opportunities. But really, he just sat on the couch all day watching Fox News and complaining about how the government screwed him over. My mom, Cheryl, worked about 20 hours a week as a receptionist at a dentist's office. But that barely covered the mortgage payment. So guess who was stuck paying for literally everything else? Yep, me. Electric bill? Tyler's got it. Water bill? Tyler will handle that. Internet, groceries, gas for mom's car? All me. I have a decent job that's enough to pay my bills. The problem was, I was paying their bills too, and nobody ever said thank you. It was just expected. My little sister, Mia, was 16, super smart, just trying to survive high school. Poor kid was always walking on eggshells around Dad. She was the only one who'd actually say thanks when I bought groceries or paid for her school stuff. Then there was my older brother, Liam, the golden child. He moved out like 2 years ago but was always showing up for dinner or to borrow money. Dad treated him like a freaking hero, even though Liam couldn't keep a job longer than a month and was always figuring things out. But he'd sit there and feed Dad all the nonsense he wanted to hear. How the system was rigged, how Dad was too qualified for entry-level jobs, how we wouldn't be struggling if the economy wasn't broken. Dad ate that stuff up like candy. Meanwhile, I'd suggest maybe he could apply at the Amazon warehouse that was always hiring, and suddenly I'm disrespectful and don't understand how the real world works. Yeah, the real world where bills magically pay themselves. The family dynamic was super clear. Dad was the man of the house who contributed absolutely nothing. Mom was tired and checked out. Liam was the perfect son who could do no wrong. Mia was invisible most of the time, and I was just the walking ATM. I kept telling myself I stayed for Mia's sake. She needed someone normal in that house. But looking back, I was in denial about how messed up everything was. It's easier to just keep your head down than to admit your own father sees you as nothing but a cash machine. Dad and I barely talked most days. He'd grunt when I got home from work, maybe ask if I could spare some money for cigarettes, but he never asked about my job, my friends, or anything. Mom was a little better, but not much. She was so focused on keeping Dad happy that she didn't have energy for much else. Liam would show up 2 to 3 times a week, always when food was ready. He'd tell these big stories about business ideas or job prospects that never went anywhere. Dad would listen like he was hearing the gospel truth. "That's my boy," he'd say, while I sat there knowing I'd be the one buying the groceries for next week. I had this routine where I'd pay all the bills on the first of the month. Electric, water, internet, streaming services, even the damn cell phone bill for everyone. I'd sometimes have to skip going out with friends just to make sure all the bills were covered. Not once did anyone offer to help, it was just expected. I remember one time the internet went out because the payment was late, my paycheck was delayed. Dad freaked out like it was the end of the world, screaming about how he couldn't watch his shows, how I had one job. I ended up taking cash from my emergency fund to pay it that day just to shut him up. Mia would sometimes sit in my room just to escape the tension. We'd play video games or watch movies on my laptop. She'd tell me about school or her friends, normal stuff. Those were the only decent times in that house. Each time I thought about moving out, there was always some crisis, some reason that required me to stay. Mom needed surgery, the furnace broke, Mia needed braces. And I fell for it every time. I had friends who couldn't understand why I stayed. My buddy Chris was always telling me, "Your family's taking advantage of you, man." I'd get defensive, make excuses, their family. What am I supposed to do, let them lose the house? The truth is, I was scared. Scared of what would happen to Mia if I left. Scared of the guilt trips. Scared of being the bad guy. So I stayed, paid the bills, and tried to ignore the growing resentment I felt every time I saw Dad lounging on the couch, while I came home exhausted from a 10-hour shift. I had this fantasy that one day they'd realize how much I did for them, that Dad would get a job, Mom would say thank you, and things would change. Stupid, right? But that's what kept me going. Sometimes I'd look at apartments online just dreaming about having my own place, but I always closed the browser before anyone saw. It felt like betrayal somehow, like I wasn't allowed to want my own life. That's how things were for about 3 years. Me working and paying for everything, Dad doing nothing, Mom enabling him, Liam showing up to mooch, and Mia just trying to survive. But lately, something felt off. Liam started hanging around more, whispering with Dad in the living room like they thought I couldn't hear them. Mom would freeze mid-sentence the second I stepped into the kitchen, like I'd just interrupted a secret meeting about me. The whole vibe was heavy, like I'd walked in after the punchline but somehow knew I was the joke. But I let it go. What else could I do? That was my family, a totally dysfunctional system that somehow worked. Until my 23rd birthday. It landed on a Friday. I wasn't expecting fireworks, maybe a grocery store cake if I was lucky. But what I got instead? Yeah, that flipped my entire life upside down. I came home from work that day, and everyone was at the dining table. Mom had actually made lasagna, which was my favorite. Dad had put on a clean shirt instead of his usual stained undershirt. Mia had made me a card with this really sweet message inside. Even Liam was there, which was weird since he usually only showed up when he needed cash. "Happy birthday, bro," Liam said, giving me this weird smile that should have been my first warning sign. We sat down to eat. Dad was being unusually chatty, asking about my job, if I was getting a raise soon, how much I was saving. Like, since when did he care about any of that? The whole thing felt fake, like we were actors in some awkward family sitcom. Dad laughing too loud at Liam's stupid jokes, Mom pretending everything was normal. Even Liam's smile was too wide, too forced. It felt less like a celebration and more like an ambush I hadn't figured out yet. Halfway through dinner, Dad put down his fork, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Tyler, you're a burden, and you can no longer live with us." I swear I thought I heard him wrong, like maybe he was joking, but his face was dead serious. I stopped chewing and just stared at him. Mom let out this weird, nervous laugh. Mia dropped her fork on her plate with a clatter. Liam had this smug little smile he was trying to hide. "What?" I finally managed to say. "You heard me," Dad said, all stern, like he was some kind of authority figure. "You've overstayed your welcome. You need to move out." I looked around the table. Mom was staring at her plate, not making eye contact. Mia looked horrified. Liam was barely containing his grin. "Are you serious right now?" I asked. "I pay for everything in this house. The electric, the water, the internet, the groceries." Dad waved his hand dismissively. "We'll be fine. Liam's moving back in. He's got some business opportunities lined up." And there it was. Liam had convinced Dad to kick me out so he could move back in, probably promised to take care of things once I was gone. What a joke. "Yeah, little bro," Liam said, not even trying to hide his smirk anymore. "Time for you to get your own place. I'll handle things here." Sure he would. The guy who couldn't keep a job at McDonald's for more than a few weeks was going to support the family. "Yeah, right." Mom finally spoke up. "Maybe we should talk about this later." "No," Dad interrupted. "This is my house. I make the rules, and I say he's done here." I looked at Mia. She looked like she was about to cry, probably wondering if she was next on the chopping block. I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to beg or argue. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they had no idea what they were asking for. "All right," I said simply. Dad sat up straighter, like he'd just won something. Liam's smirk got bigger. Mom still wouldn't look at me. I stood up, took my plate to the sink, and just walked upstairs without another word. As I left, I heard Liam saying, "See, told you he'd be cool with it. He's been wanting to move out anyway." Cool with it? They had no freaking idea what was coming. I went straight to my room and started throwing my stuff in bags. No point staying where I wasn't wanted. And if they thought they could just toss me out and still benefit from my money, they were about to learn a very expensive lesson. As I packed, I could hear them talking downstairs. Dad and Liam were laughing about something. Mom's voice was quieter, worried. I caught phrases like, "But how will we pay the..." and "What about the bills?" Followed by Dad's confident, "Liam's got connections." Sure he did. Liam's connections were just as real as his business opportunities. After about an hour, Mia knocked on my door. I let her in, and she closed the door behind her. "What the hell was that?" she whispered, her eyes red from crying. "That was me getting kicked out on my birthday," I said, continuing to stuff clothes into my duffel bag. "But that's insane. You pay for everything. They can't afford anything without you." "Not my problem anymore," I said, zipping up my bag. "Where will you go?" she asked, looking worried. "I've got some savings. I'll find an apartment, maybe crash with Chris for a few days until I can find a place." She hesitated. "Tyler, can I—" She stopped herself. I knew what she wanted to ask. "You know they won't let you come with me, not until you're 18. She nodded sadly. "This is so messed up. Liam put them up to this. He's been talking to Dad all week, saying how you don't respect him, how you act like you own the place because you pay the bills." That made sense. Liam had always been jealous that I had a steady job while he couldn't keep one, and Dad's fragile ego couldn't handle the fact that his younger son was the responsible one. "Listen," I told her, "I'll still check on you. We can text, and when you turn 18, if you need a place to stay, you can come to me." She nodded, then hugged me. "Happy birthday, by the way. Sorry it turned out like this." After she left, I kept packing, making a mental checklist of all the bills I'd need to take my name off of. By morning, they were going to learn exactly what they'd given up. I waited until the house was quiet. Everyone had gone to bed, probably thinking I'd leave tomorrow. Instead, I carried my bags down to my car at 1 in the morning. As I was about to pull out of the driveway, I opened my banking app and methodically removed my name from every single bill I paid for them. I cut them off from everything in one night. Electricity, water, internet. All of it. The streaming services they took for granted, Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, gone. Even the family cell phone plan was terminated in a few clicks. I erased every trace of support they'd been leeching off me for years. I crashed at my buddy Chris's place while I looked for an apartment. His couch was lumpy as hell, his roommate was annoying, and his dog kept trying to sleep on my face, but it was still better than staying where I wasn't wanted. "Dude, I can't believe they kicked you out," Chris said when I showed up at his door with all my bags. "That's cold." "Yeah, well, wait till they try to turn on the lights next week," I replied. Chris let me use his laptop to apartment hunt. I found a few decent places within my budget now that I wasn't paying everyone else's bills. I scheduled some viewings for the weekend. For the first time in years, I was only thinking about what I wanted, what I needed. It felt weird, but good. I took the day off work on Monday to look at apartments. I found a small one-bedroom that was close to my job. I signed the lease that day, paid the deposit, and arranged to move in by the weekend. Things were falling into place. 3 days after I left my parents' house, my phone blew up. 8 missed calls from Mom. 5 from Liam, none from Dad, of course. His pride wouldn't let him. And a text from Mia, "The power just got cut off." I grinned. That was faster than I expected. The electric company must have been waiting for that payment. Another text from Mia, "Dad's losing his mind. Says you sabotaged the house somehow." I could just picture it, Dad stomping around in the dark, ranting about how I'd done something to the electricity. Liam realizing his big plan to replace me wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. Mom probably panicking about how they couldn't watch their shows or charge their phones. Then my phone rang again, Mom this time. I decided to answer. "Tyler, something's wrong with the house," she started before I could even say hello. "The power's out, and the internet's not working, and I just got a call from the water company saying we're past due." "You didn't pay the bills," I said calmly. There was a pause. "What bills?" I almost laughed. "The electric bill, the water bill, the internet bill. All the bills I've been paying for the last 3 years. "But those just get paid automatically," she stammered. "They did when my name was on the accounts and my bank account was linked to them. Not anymore." There was silence. Then I heard Dad's voice in the background. "What's he saying? Let me talk to him." "No," Mom said to him. Then to me, "Tyler, please. We didn't think—" "That's right. You didn't think. Dad calls me a burden. Kicks me out on my birthday. And you all sit there and let it happen. Now you're surprised there are consequences? We didn't mean— I don't care what you meant. Figure it out yourselves." I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. I ignored it. Then text messages started coming in. "Mom, please call me back. We need to talk about this." "Liam, real mature, bro. Turn the power back on." "Mom, your father didn't mean what he said. He was just upset." "Liam, stop being a little jerk and fix this." I blocked both their numbers. The only one I left unblocked was Maya. She texted again that night, "It's like a war zone here. Dad and Liam are freaking out, Mom's crying, nobody knows what to do." I felt a little bad for Mia, having to deal with all this, but they'd brought it on themselves. The next day, I woke up to find a fraud alert from my bank. Someone had tried to access my account 3 times from my parents' IP address. I immediately called the bank and locked everything down, changed all my passwords. Then I called Mia. "What's going on over there?" I asked when she picked up. "It's really bad," she whispered. "Liam and Dad are going crazy. They were on the computer all morning trying to get into your accounts." "How are they trying to get in? Do you know what they were doing?" "They had this old notebook of Mom's," she said. "The little blue one she keeps in the desk drawer. It has all your old passwords from high school. The thing is, my mom had an old notebook where she kept all our passwords just in case. And even though I hadn't used those passwords in years, my family was desperate enough to try them." Mia told me Liam was guessing my security questions, like my first pet's name and Mom's maiden name, while Dad searched my old emails on the family computer for password reset links. Thankfully, they couldn't crack my email thanks to 2-factor authentication. They even tried calling the bank, with Liam pretending to be me, but he failed the security questions. I almost laughed, imagining him fumbling through answers, claiming he was locked out and needed emergency access, but the bank wasn't buying it. Chris walked into the room and saw me on the phone. He mouthed, "Everything okay?" I put Mia on speaker and she told him everything. We spent the next hour locking down all my accounts, bank, email, social media, everything. Changed security questions to things my family would never guess. Made sure 2-factor authentication was enabled everywhere possible. "What about your credit?" Chris asked. "Can they open accounts in your name?" That was something I hadn't thought of. Maybe I better freeze my credit. I called the 3 major credit bureaus and put a freeze on my credit report. No way was I letting them destroy my financial future on top of everything else. The next day, I moved my stuff into my new apartment and kept the address to myself. Yeah, not even Mia got it, just to be safe. She only had my new email. Later, she told me the power and water were still off, and the electric company wanted some ridiculous deposit because of past issues. Of course, they didn't have the money. Then she dropped the real bomb. Dad and Liam were convinced I owed them my savings and were talking about making me pay. And not in the let's have a calm discussion kind of way. Knowing my dad, I knew he was capable of doing anything if he got desperate enough. And Liam would follow his lead without thinking twice. That kind of rage mixed with desperation? That's a dangerous combo. My stomach was in knots just imagining what they might do, so I went full paranoia mode, checked every lock, kept my phone fully charged, and slept with a baseball bat next to my bed. Maybe it was over the top, but when you know what someone is capable of, it's better to be paranoid than caught off guard. The next morning, I got another text from Mia. They were gone all night. Came back super upset. "I think they were looking for you." Great. They were actually hunting for me now. I called Chris, told him Dad and Liam might be looking for me, and asked him not to give away my location. He suggested calling the cops, but I held off. Nothing had happened yet, and I just wanted to be ready. I went to work but was distracted all day, kept checking my phone for messages from Mia. Nothing during the day, which I hoped was a good sign. When I got home, I checked my mailbox and found a handwritten note stuffed inside. My blood ran cold when I saw it. "We know where you live. This isn't over." Someone had followed me, or maybe they'd gotten my new address somehow. Either way, they knew where I was. I didn't have to wait long for things to hit the fan. 2 nights after finding that note in my mailbox, I was hanging at Chris's place, playing video games. I still had some stuff there and was planning to move it to my new apartment. We were in the middle of a match when someone started pounding on the door like they were trying to break it down. "What the hell?" Chris paused the game. My stomach dropped. I just knew. "Don't open it," I told him, already reaching for my phone. The first pound shook the whole damn wall, making the controller slip in my hands. Chris's dog went nuts, barking and snarling. The sound bouncing off the walls, my pulse hammered in my ears. I didn't need to look. I already knew who it was. The pounding got louder. "Tyler, open the damn door!" It was definitely Liam's voice. Chris looked at me, eyes wide. "Dude, what the hell? I'll handle it," I said, dialing 911. "Just don't open the door. You can't hide in there forever." That was my dad now. You think you can just walk out on your family after everything we've done for you? I almost laughed at how backwards that was. As the 911 operator picked up, I said quietly, I need help. My father and brother are outside my friend's apartment threatening me. They're trying to break in. Tyler, more pounding. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. The sound of something hard hitting the door, not a fist, something else. I looked through the peephole and saw Liam holding a baseball bat, Dad behind him, face red with rage. They've got a weapon, I told the dispatcher. A baseball bat. They're trying to break down the door. Officers are on their way, she assured me. Stay on the line. Chris had backed away from the door, looking scared. Dude, your family is psycho. The pounding continued, with Liam and Dad taking turns shouting threats. You ungrateful piece of trash. You're going to pay for what you did. We're your family. You owe us. Then the door swung open, and Liam shoved his way in, his eyes wild, baseball bat still in his hand. Before I could react, he dropped the bat, lunged and grabbed my shirt, yanking me forward so hard I stumbled. His grip twisted the fabric, choking me for half a second. You think you can screw us over? He hissed, his face inches from mine. You think you can just leave us to rot? Let me go, I gasped, struggling, but his grip only tightened. His eyes burned with fury, and in that moment I realized he wasn't bluffing. He'd hurt me if it came to that. Suddenly there was noise behind me. I turned my head, barely able to breathe, and saw 2 officers stepping into the room. The baseball bat lay on the floor exactly where Liam had dropped it. One officer stepped forward, sharp and direct. These men were threatening you? I nodded, my voice rough. That's my father and brother. They were trying to break in. They had that bat. The officers moved fast, separating them, asking questions. Dad was already in damage control mode, his tone casual, like they'd just dropped by for coffee. We were just here to talk, that's all. But Liam wasn't playing along. His rage was too loud. He abandoned his family, he shouted. Left us with no power, no water. He screwed us over. The officers exchanged a glance. One turned back to me, serious. Do you want to press charges? I looked at Dad, his face shifting from anger to disbelief. Liam was still ranting, digging his own grave with every word. Yes, I said, trying to catch my breath. I want to press charges. The handcuffs clicked shut around their wrists. Dad's face twisted, stunned, like he couldn't believe it had come to this. Liam kept struggling, yelling, until they shoved him into the back of the car. As they were led away, Dad threw me one last look, pure venom in his eyes. This is how you treat your family? I couldn't believe the audacity. The family? I spat. And just like that, they were gone, taken away in separate police cars. Chris stood beside me, still staring like he couldn't believe what he'd just witnessed. Dude, your family is messed up. Not my family anymore, I said, calm and final, as I watched the red and blue lights fade down the street. That night, Mia called me in tears. They arrested Dad and Liam. Mom's freaking out, saying it's all your fault. They showed up with a baseball bat, Mia. What was I supposed to do? She was quiet for a moment. I know. I'm not blaming you. It's just everything's falling apart here. Mom's trying to get money together for bail. With what? She doesn't have any savings. Silence, because we both knew the truth. Without me, they were broke. Just be careful, I told her. Lock your door, and if Mom starts acting crazy too, call me. I hung up, feeling a mix of emotions, relief that Liam and Dad were temporarily out of the picture, worry for Mia, and a strange sense of peace. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Mia. Mom's going through your room, selling your stuff. I called her immediately. What is she selling? Everything, Mia said. Your old gaming console, your TV. She took your laptop to the pawn shop this morning. I was furious. That's theft. Those are my things. She says anything you left behind belongs to the house now. I hung up and called the police, reporting the theft. Then I drove over to the house to get whatever was left of my belongings. When I pulled up, something made my stomach drop. My old motorcycle was sitting in the driveway, the one I'd left at my buddy Dave's place for safekeeping. I got out of my car, seething. Someone had hotwired it or gotten the spare key I kept in my desk drawer. The gas tank was nearly empty, and there were fresh scratches on the side. Before I could even knock, Mom opened the front door, arms crossed. Oh, now you show up. You stole my motorcycle, I said, trying to keep my voice level. She shrugged. It was just sitting at Dave's place. You weren't using it. The casual way she admitted to theft blew my mind. It's my property. How did you even get it? Liam hot-wired it, she said, then trailed off, not wanting to mention the arrest. Give me the key, I demanded. We need money, Tyler, she said, as if that justified everything. Your father and brother are in jail because of you. No, they're in jail because they tried to break down a door with a baseball bat. Now give me the key to my bike before I call the cops again. Something in my tone must have scared her because she went inside without another word. A minute later, she came back and threw the key at me. There, she spat. Happy now? I picked it up. I'm getting the rest of my stuff, and then I'm gone for good. I walked past her into the house. Mia was waiting in the hallway looking anxious. She sold your laptop already, she whispered. And your gaming PC. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to stay calm, then looked at Mom. Where's the money from my laptop? We needed it for bills, she said defensively. That was it. The final straw. I pulled out my phone to text every pawn shop in town, sending them photos of my laptop and gaming PC, telling them they'd been stolen, and I'd be reclaiming them as soon as I found them. Then I turned back to her. You've got 24 hours to get me that money, or I'll show up at every pawn shop and take my stuff back myself. And if it's gone, you'll owe me every cent. I'll take whatever's left in this house if I have to. Her face went pale. Tyler, you can't be serious. Dead serious, I shot back. You should have thought about that before you kicked me out and sold my stuff like it was yours. We were desperate, she cried. The power's been out for days. Liam and your father are in jail. And whose fault is that? I said coldly. You made your choices. Now deal with the fallout. She stood there speechless as I grabbed the last of my things. Before I walked out, I looked her dead in the eye. I'll be back tomorrow. If I don't have my money, I'll start clearing this place out. Furniture, appliances, whatever it takes to make it right. As I left, Mia stood beside me, pale and shaking. Is this really happening? Yeah, I said, it is. I spent the next hour gathering the rest of my stuff from my old room. Most of the valuable things were gone. Mom had already sold them, but I got my clothes, some books, and a few keepsakes. As I was loading the last box into my car, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You're dead meat. Had to be Liam. Someone must have bailed him out. I showed Mia the text. Her eyes went wide. Tyler, you need to go now. Let me get my stuff first, I said. We quickly finished loading my car. As I was about to leave, I gave Mia a hug. 2 more years and you can get out too, I told her. Call me if you need anything. She nodded. I know, I'll be okay. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw headlights turning onto our street. It was Dad's truck, with Liam driving. They must have both made bail somehow. I didn't stick around to find out what they wanted. I floored it and drove away, watching in my rearview mirror as Liam jumped out of the truck and shouted something I couldn't hear. My heart was pounding as I drove to my new apartment. I called the police again, told them about the threatening text, and that my father and brother, who had just been arrested, were now following me. We'll send a patrol car to check on you, the dispatcher said. In the meantime, lock your doors and don't answer for anyone. I did exactly that, sat in my apartment with all the lights off, jumping at every sound. The patrol car drove by a few times, but there was no sign of Dad or Liam. Around midnight, Mia texted that Dad was talking about getting a gun and ending this once and for all, with Liam mentioning a friend who sells guns. That was enough for me to report the threat and forward the text. 20 minutes later, Mia said the cops were there, and after a tense wait, she confirmed they took Dad and Liam. I could finally breathe, but I knew it wasn't over. The next few weeks were a total mess. Dad and Liam got charged with attempted breaking and entering, making threats, and a bunch of other stuff. Mom got charged with theft for selling my laptop and other things, since I didn't find them in any of the pawn shops and I pressed charges. They all got court dates. Mia was staying with our aunt temporarily, since everyone else was either in jail or just got out on bail. I tried to focus on getting my life together, set up my new apartment, threw myself into work, started hanging out with friends again. It felt good to not have to worry about paying everyone else's bills. For the first time in years, my paycheck was actually mine. The court dates came and went. Dad and Liam both got probation for the attempted break-in and threats. Mom got community service for the theft. The house eventually went into foreclosure because no one was paying the mortgage. And it's actually been 2 years since all that chaos went down. Mia turned 18 last spring and moved in with me the literal day after her birthday. She had all her stuff packed for weeks, just waiting for the day. She's in college now, studying computer science and doing great. We split the rent and utilities, and she's like the complete opposite of my parents. Always pays on time, cleans up after herself, actually grateful when someone helps her out. Weird how that works, right? My parents lost the house about 6 months after everything happened. No surprise there. The mortgage hadn't been paid in months, and once the foreclosure process started, they couldn't stop it. They didn't have the money or the credit to get another place, so they ended up in this crappy apartment complex on the edge of town. Dad still doesn't have a job. Mom picked up more hours at the dentist's office, but it's barely enough to cover rent. Liam bounced around for a while, couch surfing and still talking about his big business opportunities that never seemed to materialize. Last I heard, he got arrested for selling weed, so those were probably the opportunities he was always talking about. What a winner. The restraining orders against Dad and Liam expired after a year, but they haven't tried to contact me directly again. I think they finally got the message, or maybe they just ran out of energy for all that drama. Either way, I haven't had to deal with them, which is all I wanted. Mom did try to reach out a few times, first through cards on my birthday and Christmas, then eventually through email. Always the same basic message: we're family, I miss you. Can't we put the past behind us? Never an actual apology for what they did, never any acknowledgement of how messed up it all was. I ignored all of it for a long time. Then, about 6 months ago, I finally wrote back. Just a short email saying I wasn't interested in rebuilding a relationship with people who treated me like an ATM. Kicked me out on my birthday, tried to break into my friend's apartment with a baseball bat, stole my possessions, and then threatened my life multiple times. I told her that if she ever wanted to have any kind of relationship with me again, it would start with a real apology and some serious proof that they'd changed. Her response? We were desperate. You have to understand. Still making excuses. Some people just can't admit when they're wrong, even when the evidence is staring them in the face. So that was it, the final straw. I blocked her email address and moved on with my life for real. And honestly, life is pretty good now. I'm dating a really cool girl who actually appreciates the fact that I'm responsible with money. I have my own place with Mia, my own car that nobody steals, and bills that I pay because I want to, not because I'm being guilted into it. Mia still talks to Mom occasionally, mostly through text. I don't try to stop her. That's her choice. But she's smart enough to keep boundaries in place. She doesn't tell them where we live, she doesn't give them money, she doesn't let them guilt her. I'm proud of how strong she's become through all this. For now, I'm focusing on my own life, on building something positive, on being the kind of person who doesn't treat others like walking ATMs, on being someone Mia can count on being the exact op.